Dreamcast.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a coincidence.
Oh, there is a prophecy somewhere. Okay, it looks good.
That
Looks like
says
we
life,
are. Yeah, we're back
Yeah.
on track.
Okay,
So,
yes.
Hooray.
Let me refresh this, see if it's gone back. There we go.
So what was the
excellent,
question?
excellent. Does anybody remember?
We will give it a moment just to filter back in so that we've got a bit of time, obviously. I'll count, and then I can count in, and then the question was to do with... Crap.
Someone should have wrote it down. I think it's because.
Yeah, but this is why my interview style doesn't work off the cuff, you know, sort of thing. Just doesn't work because you haven't got a record of it. Anyway.
I mean, I think the problem was as well. I think that Andrew's in the middle of answering it as well, so like, clearly we already forgot the question by that point.
Yeah, gonna have to start again, whatever it was.
Oh, we'll just start from the beginning. We'll just do it. Do it from the
Right,
Yeah,
beginning.
we'll just do all this again.
Yeah, either
No,
that.
it was about gaming publications. It was about the
Do it
resurgence of it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was it.
Okay.
That was it.
Yeah, was it that you capitalizing basically on a good opportunity, or was this as a result of the decline of the
That's it.
print publication?
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Let
And
me
we talked
get
about
mine.
Edge and stuff. And
Yeah, I
So,
want to talk about Edge.
that was it.
Yeah, of course. So, shall I count in and then we can answer the
Yeah,
question,
actually,
or
just
shall I
get
ask the
it, yeah.
question again? And
No,
then...
just ask the question.
No, we'll just get going.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll count us in to start again. So sorry, stream. We had a minor technical issue.
My fault.
So I will count us in. So 3, 2. So that sort of leads on to talking about the resurgence of gaming publications and the decline of them a few years previously. So was Lock-On as a result of the fact that you saw publications like Ninty Fresh making a resurgence, or the fact that places like OXM, Official Nintendo Magazine, are all fallen by the wayside, and you wanted to restore gaming publications to where they once were before?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, a lot of them have gone now, right? So, Official Xbox Magazine was last year. Official PlayStation Magazine was this year, I think. They've all just kind of fallen by the wayside. The only people now doing them are like future publications, and it's Retro Gamer, Edge, and PC Gamer are the only ones that I know of that are like the big gaming publications left. There might be another one that I'm forgetting, and if I am, really sorry, I'm forgetting you. Play, of course, it's the new one. So, but that's it. I mean, you used to have back in the day, there was tons of different publishers doing lots of different magazines. You had Games Master, you had CVG, you had all the Games TM, you had all the official magazines for all the consoles, and they've just fallen by the wayside as time's gone on. And yeah, I think that for people of a certain age who remember reading all of their games news in magazines and not on the internet, it's like there's such a nostalgia there, and that's what things like Switch Player and Ninty Fresh are tapping into, is the nostalgia. And Sega Mania is one that's come up recently as well. They're all tapping into this nostalgia for people who used to love getting their magazine from the newsagents and going home and sitting down and reading the latest reviews or the news that had come out. So there is definitely a part of it that, this resurgence has been great, because it's, it means that we're coming at a great time for gaming media. But I think it's something, I know that John's been thinking about it for a long time, so I think he's been thinking about it before the more recent kind of surge in indie publications. And I've been thinking for a couple of years about magazines as well, and I've wanted to get into it myself, so I was kind of looked out to get in with Lost in Cult and Lock-On. But I guess it's not just about, for me anyway, it's not just about doing something that there's now a gap in the market for, which is great. It's great that we can fill the gap in the market that's come up, but it's also being able to do it differently, because the problem that you find, or that I find with magazines from the old guard, so the big publishing places, is that they're reliant on advertisements in order to fund themselves, and they're also reliant on deals with publishers, and not just in terms of we're not talking about giving money for review scores here, because that doesn't happen, but they advertise in there, they give them codes, they expect to get coverage for certain games, good or bad, they expect to get the coverage for the the stuff they're giving them. And that's great, but it also means that your magazines are then they're produced based on that. They're produced
Yeah.
based on what the advertisers want. They're produced based on what the
Right.
publishers want.
Yes.
They're not produced based on what people want to read all the time.
Sure.
So I think that for stuff like Lock On, for stuff like Sega Mania, all the big ones coming up, they don't have to rely on that anymore, and they can go, hey, what do we want to talk about? What games are we interested in? And a lot of the time, that tracks with what everybody else is interested in. You know, like in our first volume, we talked about Demon Souls, and we talked about what other games we talk about? The big PlayStation games, that original PlayStation. Talking about retrospectives of that. That stuff doesn't sell because they're not new games. They're not games that are being sold right now. So, in traditional magazine publishing, they might dedicate a couple of pages to it at the back, but the rest of it's going to be about all the new games coming up. And that doesn't matter to us. We don't care. We want to talk about what matters to us, what's interesting, the interesting articles that are coming out. So I think it's more to do with being able to do our own thing and kind of plot our own course, rather than it being a response to the downfall of printed media, although that plays into it, of course. So
I mean, let's be honest, anybody who prints an article about Vib Ribbon,
right,
just basically says that you're hitting a niche market there more than anything, because Vib Ribbon is very niche, let's be honest.
It is.
So
it shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, while we're on this topic of what you guys are trying to do differently as well. I was originally going to ask, what you and the team want Lock On to be, and I feel you have kind of answered that a bit, in the sense of this isn't traditional by any means. It's more like a homage, so to speak, to the golden era of certain games and all that. Is that what you want us to be? A kind of that kind of new media for kind of physical publications anyway?
Yeah.
You're not living up to trends and...
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I guess what we want to be is, the whole thing, we call it a gaming journal, right? So it's not a magazine, it's a journal. So it's about looking at, like you say, gaming trends, looking at games from the past, looking at current games, looking at politics, looking at games as art, looking at all this kind of stuff, and putting it into a publication that's interesting. So I guess the future is that we want to. I'm trying to think how we've put it best so far. Is that we want it to be this premium product that people who enjoy physical items, the people who loved magazines and stuff, it's great for them to be able to grab a magazine like Sega Mania or Switch Player, and they can have a flick through it and then stick it on their shelf, stick it in the drawer or recycle it, or whatever you do with your magazine when you've finished with it. Hopefully not recycle it. You put it in a little magazine folder like I do. Keep it for the future.
Yes.
But with Lock On, we want something that people could literally put on their shelf, like on their bookshelf, especially with the hardcover that we were talking about earlier. It's a collector's item. It's not just, that's what physical media has become now as well. I feel like you want something that's collectible, that you can physically hold. It's tangible. It looks nice. It feels good to touch. It and apparently our smells really nice as well, which is always a plus. So I think the future, we want that collectibleness of it. We're limited run anyway. We only print so many, so we want that to be a part of it. We want we want to be at the forefront in terms of talking about games as a serious thing. So I know John is huge on this. So you've got like film journals like Little White Lies. I don't know if you've seen that, and all these other. Yeah, so you've got these kind of journals that talk about film very seriously. There's humor in there, but what I mean by that is that they take them seriously as a medium, as media. Games doesn't have that really. It's all about like, oh, what's the next AAA game coming out? Right. Look at this indie game. Look at this, and that's all well and good. It's fine. It's great. There should be that. We have that for films as well. You have film magazines that review films and talk about the latest blockbusters. That's great. What we don't have in gaming is something that really says, hey, look at this art. Look how amazing this game has been produced artistically. Let's take a dive into why Final Fantasy VII is political. Let's think about nostalgia and why that's important to us now, and how we should be thinking about it differently. So yeah, in the future, we want to keep that up and make people think about games as more than just the thing you stick on for 10, like me and Angry Birds, the thing that you stick on to play for 10 minutes while you've got time. These are serious and but not always, but they can be serious pieces of artistic media.
Absolutely.
And we should look at them like that. So.
Absolutely.
That is exactly what I took away from the Metal Gear Solid article in the first volume, is that that really was the blurring of the lines between the cinema and as an artistic project and video games as an artistic project, because it's been well known that Hideo Kojima obviously wanted to do films and wasn't able to, and he took this medium and basically turned it into a cinematic sort of experience, let's say. And I think Laurie pretty much expertly done that in his article, really, to state that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yes. Similarly, I was going to on this kind of veto, I was going to reference the article on Resident Evil and how monsters have changed over the years. I think that was one of my favourites from Volume 1. Because obviously, you know, and you see it in cinema as well, how we've gone from things like Nosferatu, Frankenstein. They're not really that. I mean, Nosferatu maybe is a bit scary still, but like Frankenstein stuff, yeah. But then you've got like movies with serial killers now and stuff, and that's kind of. And I really had that article related that to gaming as well, particularly with Resident Evil. Resident Evil reflected that change in people's perceptions. I really thought that was an interesting talking point. Very well done. So is that how you guys hope to stand out in the kind of those aspects of kind of the art, but also the conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I think we want to make people think is the big thing. We want to present something to people that is a collector's item that is full of beautiful artwork that you could literally just put on a coffee table and flick through the art and go, oh, that's nice, and look at it that way. Or you can sit and read the articles and have a really, you know, like I think somebody wrote a review about it recently, and they were like, oh, you know, this is something you could, you know, sit down with a glass of wine or a nice cup of coffee and flick through for like an hour and, you know, read some of the articles and really kind of stop and think about them and like reflect on things yourself. And that sounds incredibly pretentious, and it probably is, but you know, that's something you don't get with gaming journalism very often. Is something that, you know, that there are some very specific and specialist sites that will do stuff like that, but the vast majority of gamers just want to know when the next Fortnite skin is coming out, or when the next season of Call of Duty Warzone is out, you know, stuff like that, which is fine, all great, but there needs to be places that you can seriously. I'm holding a book like this in my hands for some reason. I don't have one; it's invisible. Like I'm reading I'm envisaging the book in front of me. But it needs to be what we want it to be, is something that is beyond all of that, and it takes a look at games in a much different way. And I feel like I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna go let you ask a question.
Kylie, I think you had a question before, didn't you?
Not so much a question, just kind of a comment that it can branch off if anybody wants to. Okay. But as a person that I don't, which is ironic, I'm in publishing, but I don't purchase paper media. The only kind of physical media that I have bought ever in the last 5 years is Edge magazine. And it's for the exact reasons you just listed, which is because it's absolutely stunning and beautiful, and the quality of the paper is unreal. I really get a lot of vibes, good vibes, on Lock On. Did Edge have any kind of influence in a way?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, you can't talk about what I've just been talking about, which is serious conversations about games without looking at Edge, right? Because Edge is the first one that did it. So it's not that doesn't exist. It's just that it exists in the form that we have it at the moment, which is, you know, it's a big publisher who's doing it. There's still reviews in there. There's still previews in there.
And it's still advertisers. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But they still do get a lot of that really deep, interesting, thoughtful articles in there. It's just, you know, they're kind of sporadically placed amongst all the adverts and stuff that they have as well.
Exactly.
Which is fine. They have to pay for it somehow. That's fine. True. And I mean, and they are great. I mean, I would say that I'm not as enamored with Edge now as I used to be. It used to be a much better publication.
I will agree with that.
Yeah, it's interesting though, and I mean, it's gone through a few changes recently. Jen Sims, is it Jen Sims or Jen Simpson? Trying to remember her name.
Ooh,
I'm
now that you said
terrible
it,
now.
I'm gonna say Sims, but
So, but she was recently the editor. She moved on to Dreams to work on Dreams, which is great. But she brought some awesome stuff into that. Like she started bringing in these amazing covers that they did. Like they did like this big fold out one for Descent, and they did like some awesome stuff. Yeah, she was fantastic. I think different editors have brought different things to the magazine over time, and of course, you've also got to remember that like all magazines, their subscriber base has declined, and as the subscriber base has declined, the number of pages in that magazine has declined.
It used to be about that thick, and now it's like
tiny.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, you can't talk about thoughtful text in media, in games media, without talking about Edge, and it's a great one to bring up, because it's absolutely it's the forebear for everything in terms of that, and we certainly took inspiration from it. But I think we wanted to just take it a step further, not have to worry about, as I said before, not have to worry about dealing with publishers, with dealing with advertisements, and just go for it.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that briefly, because you have mentioned the lack of advertisers a few times actually. Is that why you decided to go with the Kickstarter model?
Pretty much, yes. There's not really any way to do it otherwise, really, unless you have a bunch of money. So which would be lovely, but that's not what happens. So Kickstarter is the best way to do it. Kickstarter has its problems, not going to lie. There are issues. Some people have trust problems with Kickstarter because stuff that they've backed just has never materialized, and I can completely see that. I think gaming media generally has been fine. There's been quite a number of big projects in terms of books, magazines that have funded on there and have come out, and it's all good. I don't think I've really seen any that have not completed. But yeah, so that's the reason we use that model. It's a great way to get people to basically pay for the production up front. You know, they see the quality of it and they go, okay, yeah, I want to buy into that. And then the first Kickstarter, especially, you're taking a chance, right? You're thinking, right, this looks good, but it could turn out to be terrible.
Right.
So I'm going to take a chance, and hopefully now people have seen it, people have got it in their hands. They're like, okay, yeah, this was worth it. And so going into Kickstarter 2, when we do that, should be much easier to convince people, hey, we're not gonna screw you out of loads of money. It's fine. It's going to be a good product to the end. Don't worry. But yeah, that model is really helpful for indie media publications. It's the way to do it, unless you have thousands upon thousands of pounds to do it in like up front and then sell it later. I know that Sega Mania funded it themselves, but theirs is a much smaller magazine, so I think that they could fund it on a much lower amount. Ours costs astronomical amounts because hardcovers are not cheap.
No, they're not.
I mean, you can tell that based on the premium price that was on the Kickstarter for that particular version.
Yes, it's expensive to produce, but it's worthwhile. Yeah, it's worthwhile.
Did the Kickstarter model also give you a general understanding of who was interested, so that you didn't make extra copies that you knew that probably wouldn't sell as well?
Yeah, exactly. So, it helps. You can then go, okay, well, we can produce this many. And of course, if you overfund, then it means you can produce more, which you can then sell on later, which luckily we were able to do. So we were like, okay, well, we funded a bit more, so we can print more. And it's the scaling model. So the more the more books that we produced, the cheaper it became to produce each book. So as more and more people backed, we could produce more books for less. So essentially we could then sell more after the fact. Otherwise, if we'd have only just hit the target the first time, we'd have sold however many we sold on Kickstarter, and that would have been the end of it. And then we'd be like, oh, okay, well, so just those people get one now, nobody else can have one. Okay. Yeah.
And I believe you also mentioned that this probably isn't going to ever be reprinted, if I remember rightly hearing that. But is there potential that if future issues are successful, that a reprint run could happen?
I'm gonna say, so I have had this conversation with John, because I was like, it seems to be doing well. Do we want to reprint it? And John's very much of the idea that it's limited, right? So it's part of the limited run model that's become so popular in games recently, which is we're printing this many, that is it. And part of that is because it means that, people get something. It's part of the whole physical media being collectible now thing, is that this is something that only a certain amount of people can have. And that seems weird and it seems restrictive, but it's each copy is numbered, hand numbered.
Yeah.
Poor John spent days numbering them by hand.
I wondered that. Okay, that was one of my questions answered.
Yeah, he was like, I was like, how many have you done? He's like, I've done 300. I need to go to bed. I was like, all right, do the next lot tomorrow.
That's
John.
excellent.
So he's done. So they're all hand numbered, the hardcovers and the softcovers. The thing is that we can sell them digital ad nauseum. So if you wanted a digital copy,
right.
they're always going to be available. Yeah. We're not going to we're not going to restrict that. Because that's one of the that's one of the things there's been. I don't know if you saw Super Rare Games, and they did a thing recently where there was a whole kickback because they were just going to release something physically. Never ever was it going to be released digitally, and people went crazy.
Yes, it did.
And we were like, I was like, that's I got that. I got that, and it was like, okay, well, we can't restrict the digital versions because that's just not fair.
Yeah.
So basically, to answer your question in a shorter version than I just did, no, we're never going to reprint them. There'll always just be that many. We might print more of future volumes depending on. So next time there might be 1,250 soft covers available. Just depends how many people buy into it essentially and like it. And the more people that we get buying it, perhaps the bigger the numbers will get as time goes on. But issue 1, if you're a proper collector, if you really wanted to collect from issue 1 onwards, it's going to get more difficult as time goes on, unfortunately.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you should do like a holographic special limited alternate cover the way they do comic books.
Oh, yeah, they also the subscriber covers they used to have on a various different publications as well, and I know film magazines like Starburst
because
do that
they'll
as
do
well,
different,
which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, different covers and stuff.
Yeah. I did that I mentioned it before, I did my zine for my Dreamcast Year 2, and I've done a regular version and a subscriber version. You can't subscribe to it, but I just, because of it being like the magazine standard, I was like, I'll just do 2 different versions. So there's I did that with that, which I thought was quite nice.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Ciaran, what did you have?
I'd like to kind of touch on the content actually in the publication itself now as well.
Sure.
So one thing that's a big part of it, obviously, is the art. It's everywhere in the book, even like page to page. There's some great graphic design as well, so it's all laid out and stuff. So what led the team to decide that art should be a central part of the journal?
Again, John's gonna get a mention straight away. Basically, John was like this was the whole point at the start of it. It was that it needs to be an art-led book. So John has an artistic background. He's a graphic designer. He does illustration as well. So he's big on that. He knows a lot of people in that community, and he wanted to support artists as well as writers. He was like, I need to support. We could have just gone ahead and done a bunch of screenshots and cover art for games and stuff and done the usual magazine thing. But his point was like, if it's going to be a premium product, which he wanted it to be from the start, it has to be bespoke art, and it should probably be a lot of bespoke art so that you can justify charging quite a lot for it, because it's not, like we've said before, it's not cheap, but also it makes it something that people want to buy. It's not just if you think of a normal journal, like a scientific journal, is wall-to-wall text, right?
Yes.
Pretty much, it's just text. And we could have done that. We could have just had wall-to-wall text of gaming articles. It wouldn't have worked for gaming, I don't think. So having the art there makes it interesting. It makes it collectible. It makes it an item that people really want to have. I mean, some of the piece of art, like you see the one for. The actual properly painted ones for Demon Souls, like the 2 covers, which are also within the book, they were actually they're oil paintings that exist.
That's so amazing.
Which is fantastic. And then there's the stuff by Mako, which is I think it's the piece for Sharing Silence about Death Stranding, which is beautiful.
That was beautiful.
Yeah. Bani-chan, who did Castlevania and that kind of Final Fantasy style.
That actually brings up a question that I had, because I love that piece. It was beautiful.
Yes.
I know that you've got like extras that come along with it, and the issue and stuff. But the art itself, is that something that you guys would ever sell, so that people could have it? You know, on their walls?
I'm trying to think now. So some of it possibly. I mean, like you say, we have some of the tiers had extras. So there was art cards with some of the art on it, and we had a poster as well, which was the Oh No Sam like PlayStation characters, which is awesome. I love that.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is as well. So another thing that we do in Lock On is we want to be fair with our content creators. So in terms of paying them fairly and stuff like that. So with artists, they get screwed over a lot in what they do, horribly. So you know, to begin with, we're not a publication that can afford to pay a huge amount for art because of the amount that we need to commission in order to fill a book.
Right.
But we pay fairly. We pay a fair amount.
That's good
As we expand, we're gonna offer people more. So the more people buy our publication, the more money we get in, the more money we can then pay to artists, to writers. But also there's the fact that artists make money on, even if they've been commissioned for something, they still make money down the line on people wanting to buy that stuff. So as far as I'm aware, if that artist wants to sell it themselves, I believe that's fine. I'd have to check with John,
really
but
good.
we probably wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's actually very, very good. You know, just in terms of, I know how the industry is. And of course.
Yeah, we
Chloe in chat is also an artist. Well, do you want to ask Brent first and then move to Chloe?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just these relate to sort of to do with the publication itself. So, Brent wanted to know how much was the magazine sold for, and how much of that went into content versus production.
Okay. So the soft cover is £20. The hardcover it's no longer available, but it was 55. So the hardcover is a lot more expensive to produce, so therefore that's why it costs more to do that. So that was just why that cost more. But if we just look at the soft cover, so soft covers aren't a huge amount to produce. So I'd say if you wanted to split it into percentages, probably the production of that probably cost roughly 25%. So the rest of the 75% was all on content. So, you know, and there's, I say 75%, there's profit in there too, because there has to be a business at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You have to have profit in there.
Absolutely.
But so, so you know, it's, but the vast majority was spent on the content. You know, we paid a good amount to artists, we paid a good amount to the writers, the editorial staff obviously were paid too. So, you know, we all took some money away from it. And that's the thing, like a lot of these indie publications will either pay very small amounts or they'll pay nothing, which is fine if that's, you know, if that's what people agree to and they're happy to do it because it's a passion project. Nothing wrong with that. But because we're aiming at a premium angle, we're like, well, we have to pay people and we have to pay them fairly because that's, you know, they're spending their time doing this work for us. It's only fair to pay them to do that. So so the majority of our expenditure was on the content side of it for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So Chloe has. I'm not sure if this is a question, but it's more a comment than anything. It says, not a question, but the art definitely made it stand out for me when I first saw it as an inspiring artist. It's so cool seeing the various amounts of style, amount of different artists. I was also going to mention the Death Stranding piece as one of my favourites.
I really created that atmosphere.
Brent also thanked you for answering this question open and honestly.
It's all right. Not a politician. I'll always be honest.
Yes, Ciaran.
As well, right. Now this may be a bit of a stretch, right? Now, you mentioned how you know, you wanted to make Lock On thought-provoking as well, right? So, you know, again, this may be a stretch, but was the inclusion of all the art and you know, procuring all these different artists and their pieces for the journal somewhat related to how you wanted, somewhat your reflection of how games are as much art as they are an entertainment medium?
I think that's very true. Yeah, absolutely. Having those pieces in there demonstrates more than having a screenshot of the game, which, you know, a lot of games can look very similar. It shows you that those are artistic endeavors. And also, I know John did this very specifically. You look at something like the Castlevania piece, and it's not in a Castlevania style. It's in and I cannot remember the name of the artist. He's incredibly famous. The guy who does the concept art for Final Fantasy.
Oh, yes.
It's
Oh
very
my
much in
goodness.
his style.
Oh, what? Oh, that's gonna
I
annoy
know.
me now.
You might have to Google it while we're talking.
I'll
But yeah,
do
so
that quickly now.
it's in that style. And originally, I believe it was this particular artist. I know John had this conversation with one of the artists, but they were like, "I don't think that game really suits my style." And he was like, "Well, but that's the reason we want you to do it.
Oh, I love that.
We want to try something completely different with these to show
That's
the
a great idea.
to show the artistic side of it." So yeah.
I love that. That is a fabulous idea.
Yeah.
I believe it's Yoshitaka Amano.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Horrible pronunciation aside, of course.
I wouldn't have done. I don't think any of us would do much better, to be fair.
Yeah.
Alright, Ciaran, did you have another one?
Yeah, I was going to say, so obviously we're now talking about the art, but let's now talk about features a little as well and the writing in general.
Yeah.
One thing I was curious about, you've kind of gone on about how you got a team together and stuff, but how did you actually go about coming up with the ideas for the features in particular?
So
Is it like a big process, especially with
Yeah.
like not being able to meet in person for these things? Like, how did you
Yeah.
get them together to discuss?
So, I mean, I think, like I said before, I wasn't hugely involved in the original until after the Kickstarter. So, by which point all this had been done. I can tell you from Volume 2 onwards what it was like. But I know for the original, from what I remember, it was just a case of they knew they wanted to do a PlayStation focused first issue. So they just asked for pitches and they just put it out there to people that I think
that's
John
really good.
already knew, and also just put it out in general to people and said, just pitch us something and we'll look at it, and if we like it, then we'll go for it. So it was very much I think John had an idea that he wanted some features, like I think he wanted the Demon Soul stuff because he was very set on that, so he specifically went and looked for people who did that kind of stuff. I think he wanted something to do with Death Stranding, and the guy who wrote it, Marcus Maloney, is like, he's proper academic, and he's recently he asked us if he could put it on his university's website blog so other people could read it, and we were like, yeah, that's fine.
Cool.
So he did that. So he went looking for certain people that he knew or people that would fit the brief that he wanted, but mostly we just asked for pitches. And so for Volume 2, we did the same, and recently we've been doing pitches for Volume 3, and we're doing a Dreamcast focused issue and for Volume 3, so we were like, just pitch us Dreamcast stuff, and we just got loads of pitches in. We're like, okay, and then we just have to sift through them all, pick out ones that we're really interested in, and then ones that maybe we think that's interesting, but like maybe it's an interesting subject, but maybe the idea of the article isn't quite there. Then generally we'll work with the writer and go, okay, well, we need to make this a bit more interesting, we need to dig a bit deeper into that subject, or we need to like maybe focus slightly differently. So we'll work with them. If the pitch isn't quite right, but we like the general idea, then we'll work with them to make it work for the journal.
You should add a custom Seaman poster with that with that addition.
You might be quite pleasantly surprised that there is something related to that in.
There's a little scoop in there, I see.
Yeah. I'm going to be mildly disappointed in Volume 3 if there is not a pitch for why the Dreamcast is the perfect console for the arcade fighter.
Oh, right.
Oh, right.
Okay.
That
Is the whole
controller.
page coming in now?
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, I'm willing to pitch it myself.
Pete's a writer. He's a writer.
Well, I don't think so. We did get a pitch similar to that, but we already have an arcade-based article going on. However, I do have somebody writing for Dreamcast Year 2. We're doing articles this time in my second book, and Sandeep Rai, who wrote PlayStation Vita Year 1, he's writing an article all about the 2D fighters on the Dreamcast, and like you said, how it was the perfect platform for 2D fighters. So,
I also made
that.
3D fighters as well.
3D fighters too, but yeah.
But yeah, there was a huge
controller.
focus.
Yeah.
So that actually does lead into the future of Lock-On as a whole. Is you recently just announced that your Kickstarter for Volume 2 will be launching on the 17th of August, I believe, which is in a couple of days of the recording. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you expect from it, so in terms of themes, features, or anything such?
Sure. So just to start with, we may not launch on the 17th. So if you're listening to this, it's possible we might not. We're having trouble with Kickstarter. They're being annoying.
Yeah.
They have to approve everything,
Yes.
and so because of the nature of what we're doing quarterly, which is another yeah, it's a lot of work, but it means that we can get a lot more in and do a lot more awesome stuff. But so we're doing it quarterly. We shipped, we marked everything as shipped, and then Kickstarter was like, you haven't shipped, and we're like, no, we have shipped.
Oh gosh.
Like you can't launch you can't launch a project until you've shipped. I'm like, no, but we have. Like we've literally shipped everything, and they were like, oh, and now it's the weekend, and they don't work on the weekend, so we're like, no, Kickstarter, what are you doing to us?
And then they probably have their 2-day SLA admin time and all that sort of thing as well.
So, we're holding fire. We hope that we'll hear something tomorrow at some point, but if not, then there's a possibility it might be delayed by a week. So just so people are aware, that's a possibility that it might be delayed. Fingers crossed it's still the 17th, but maybe not. So,
but it's definitely coming, so that's the important
it's
part.
Definitely, yeah. I worked really hard last week on the Kickstarter page, so it definitely has to happen now. But yeah, so for Volume 2, I think the plan is that every other volume will have a theme. So like we had PlayStation for Volume 1, we've got Dreamcast for Volume 3, we have an as yet unannounced theme for Volume 5, but the ones in between will be mostly just basically whatever people want to write about. There'll be there'll be stuff to do with like particular games. Like so for Volume 2, we've got the covers are Hollow Knight Silk Song and Near Replicant.
Oh, that'll be pretty to
Yeah, so the Near Replicant cover is being done by the same person who did the Castlevania art.
Oh, it's gonna be stunning. That is gonna be stunning. Nice. Oh, wow.
It's already on Twitter. You can view both of the covers on the website as well. Nice. So both the covers are available to look at. But yeah, so there's going to be features about those two games. But yeah, it's essentially if we've got some awesome pictures in, then we'll take them, and if they don't fit into a particular volume that's got a theme, then they'll go into the other volume essentially. So we've got a bunch of stuff. I think there's some more stuff about Resident Evil in Volume 2. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what else there is, but there's a bunch of stuff and some really interesting and thought-provoking. We've used that term a lot. Thought-provoking articles in there, and some very excellent artwork. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the brief of what you were going for, really. So use thought-provoking as much as possible because it's exactly what you're going for.
I'm supposed to be a writer, though. I should be able to think of these synonyms on the fly for all of these things.
I can't.
No, we all do it. Don't worry.
Words don't come out, and I'm like, I've been a writer for like a million years, and I'm just like.
Well, it was something similar than when we were putting together the Back for Blood article last week, and Ciaran wanted to use a header, and I was like, maybe we should use something different because you've used that word already in one previous header. So we all do it. It just it's natural to happen because you find a word that seems to describe your goal, and there's no other way to describe it.
So
that's right.
Let me ask this, and then sorry, Ciaran,
I was fine. Don't worry about it.
Jumped the gun. So going forward, it sounds like you've got the next issues, set out, type of thing. Do you think that you guys will ever have open submissions, or is this strictly like invite only, type of thing? Like when you're talking about the pitches and stuff like that.
Yeah, we definitely have open submissions. So we had open submissions for Dreamcast. We're gonna be opening again very soon for Volume 4. I can tell you what that is as well because that's going to be up soon. So we are looking for submissions about. Trying to think of I keep thinking of Elder Scrolls, and it's not Elder Scrolls. It's the other one with Elder in the title. No, Elden Ring.
Oh, okay. There you go.
My brain just leaked out of my ears. I was like, what? So Elden Ring, and so we're looking for stuff for Elden Ring and Bloodborne, I believe.
Right.
But we're also looking at we're wanting to do a whole piece. Well, not piece, a whole section about diversity. So we're looking at women in gaming, people of color, LGBT people, people with disabilities, everything, every spectrum. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a piece that's about that. It doesn't have to be I'm a woman in gaming and this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I hate those.
If you want to write about that, that's absolutely fine. You can do that. But the point is, you can write. We're just basically it's an open submission for people from those communities to be like, okay, you can write whatever you want to write about. If you want to write about abuse in gaming, because that's a huge topic at the moment. If that's
Right,
something you really want to write about and have put into the journal, if it's something that we feel is going to be interesting to the readers, absolutely we'll put it in there. If you want to talk about your experiences as a trans gamer, you can absolutely talk about that. But if you just want to write about a particular game that you love and you just so happen to be trans, or you just so happen to be bisexual,
I like
whatever,
that. That's good.
so we just want to open it up to that and just have a proper, almost like pride, like being proud of who you are, and yeah. But then the rest of the issue will be stuff like Bloodborne, Elden Ring, and any other kind of pitches that we get in as well. We'll absolutely consider. So.
Oh, that's excellent.
Well, there you go, Brent. Pitch for accessibility in gaming with Warframe.
That's our accessibility expert out there. Ciaran, what were you going to say, Ciaran?
I mean, just touching there, when you say the Elder Scrolls, I lit up because I've got some ideas for things I want to do the Elder Scrolls, particularly Skyrim. But maybe down the line we'll see.
Do a whole issue on Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
Oh my!
But,
and Brent did put already thinking of my pitch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But,
Ciaran, yes.
Yeah, to take a little kind of step back, to go back to kind of the features and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Obviously, on your site, you have described Lock-On as containing unique long-form features with cultural, artistic, and socio-political themes.
Right.
And that was evident from the first volume. One of my favourite pieces, and I think it is my favourite piece, I've got the name up on my computer, The World Bleeds Green. Where the writer James relates Final Fantasy VII, I think it was, to the Flint water crisis, and then he brings in all these other political theory and all of that, accelerationism, and me being a politics student, obviously I kind of gravitate towards that. And again, not to say it's thought provoking again, but I just thought it was an incredible piece. So as I pose my first question for the is, a piece like that was very essay-like.
Yeah.
Rather than traditional, again, games journalism, you kind of already talked about how you wanted to go a bit far from the mainstream. But was that kind of more essay style thing something you were particularly looking out for when taking in pitches and stuff?
I think we're quite open in terms of what we have. Like, the essay style is very suited to a journal, so it's always going to be something that we would want to publish, because it's something that other people just wouldn't want to publish. It's not going to get them the clicks that they need or the ad revenue. And that's another thing that we want to do as well, is we're giving writers the opportunity to write stuff that other editors on sites just would go, no, I don't want that. We don't want to talk about that, or we don't. They either don't want to be political, or they need something that's going to get them as many clicks as possible, or it needs to appeal to their advertisers. And there's so many people, especially who've come to John and to me as well, and are like, I've really had this awesome idea, but nobody will commission it. And we're like, hey, we'll pitch it to us. We'll if it's good, we'll commission it. And that's a lot of these articles, like The World Bleeds Green, and I think what was another one that didn't get picked up? There's a bunch in the first volume alone that just people just didn't want to take. They didn't want to pay for it. We're like, okay, well, they sound great to us. Let's do it.
Exactly.
They don't necessarily have to be essay-like at all. It could be anything. But the essay format definitely does fit well. But we have stuff like you've seen in the first volume. There's the retrospective, so a page just talking about a game in particular, or or like list articles as well. There's stuff like the Housemarque Returns, which was kind of listing all of the games from Housemarque and why they were important and how they led to Returnal, essentially. So yeah, we're kind of open to most things, but that essay style definitely fits, and we'll always have those kind of articles in there, I think, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and as well, just as a kind of second question from that, you've already again spoke about how you feel that there's not enough places having those kind of conversations with games, and emphasising how significant they are, socio-politically, culturally, artistically. But why is that something you feel is important to have? Why is that a conversation that's important?
I think a lot of it's to do with, and I don't know again if this is pretentious or not, but it's to do with gaming being taken seriously. I think it's a medium which actually accounts for what I think it's the biggest in terms of revenue of all. I think above movies even, which is incredible.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, it finally overtook revenue in terms of movies.
Yeah. So it's this huge thing, and yet it's still in a very and again, it's not that nobody is doing this. Like we've said, Edge is doing stuff like this. There are certain websites that will do this, sure, but it's just not as prevalent as it should be.
Right.
People have been writing essays, and you can study film at university. I studied film at university, and it's it's a medium that's taken seriously, and people can look into movies and find socio-political themes. They can find all sorts of stuff, and people make them for those reasons. But people make games for those reasons too, except they're just not looked at in that way. They're looked at in, oh, how much does it cost? Can I get it on Game Pass instead? Because I don't want to pay 50 quid for it.
Yeah, Kieran.
Can I? Why am I paying this much for this game? Can I shoot that person in the head? Can you pet the dog? All great questions. All great questions. Can you pet the dog is a great question. But there's more to games than that, and people should be discussing those things more often, I think. And so I think that's why we wanted to do Lock On, is to have that and have it in a printed form as well, to have that have the added extra of it being this physical object you can hold and read. And it's almost like those coffee table books you can get about film and about art and stuff like that, but for games. And that's what we want to do.
I think
Admittedly, I do love those publications that you get for film where they show you like images from the set and stuff like that. And this definitely gave off that impression to me as well when I was reading through it. Is that was sort of the idea, was that you wanted something that was going to be legitimate and something you could put on your coffee table and someone might be intrigued enough to go and look at it in the same way. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's also something that should be noted, that film itself, like you're using it as a kind of parallel, was not taken seriously either until about the 70s. There was a renaissance in the 70s. So you had like 70 years worth of film, just about, and it was only nerds that wrote about it, talked about the socio-political things, and then brought it to the forefront in about mid to late 70s. So it's kind of the same, I think, with games. It's going to happen, and because of people like you and Edge and all the others, that's going to do exactly what you're saying. It's going to bring it to the forefront, and people will accept it as an artistic medium, which they should.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. It's just making it clear that's what it is, and it's because it's how the medium is represented by the masses, I guess, and by news media. Right. It is people see. Sure. All people see is like, oh well, video game violence causes murder, and this video game has like. And they just talk about like the technical aspects of it, or the controversial aspects of it, or it's like, the esports side, and esports is great, nothing wrong with that at all, but it's people just see it as a game, it's something to play, and it's like, no, it's more than that. There's something that a lot of games are very deep. I have proper stories. Last of Us Part 2 is a huge one to call on for that, because it's just an incredible piece of storytelling.
Exactly, and I've commented so many times on the show, but I'm going to do it again. Red Dead 2 is one of the most beautifully acted and performed pieces. There is I won't do any spoilers, but there is a particular scene that just kills me every time, and it's where Arthur is talking to a nun at the train station. In case anyone knows what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. I was trying to think. There's many scenes for me.
But the reason why this one stands out so much to me is because I'm watching a video game of digital pixels, and yet I can see the tears in Arthur's eyes, and it and then of course when ending, you're crying your eyes out. But that was like a huge significant moment for me. I mean, I've always seen games as art, games as storytelling, because I'm a nerd, and that's my escape. But that was very pivotal to me, that we've entered a new age where these digital pixels can make us feel empathy and things.
I feel like that's going to help the masses understand it better, because if you can get emotion from a game, if you can really empathize with the character, great. But it's more than that as well, because games for a long time have been using gameplay itself in order to do something that films just can't. But the problem is that if you don't play games, you wouldn't know. Like if somebody's grandma was like, oh, I don't get these video games. If you tried to show them like, you know, a game that tries to tell incredible story, like does something different, like Journey, you know, that has no words, but it tells this incredible emotional story through amazing gameplay and how the whole just random online person who comes in. I had like the best experience with that, where I played it on my own at first. I think I turned it off so I wasn't online, and then the second time I played through, just some random person was there, and I was like, oh, and this person was showing me around all these places I've never seen before, and was like beckoning me to come and look at different things and helping me with stuff, and it was this incredible shared experience that I just could not have had.
That's the key. You said experience, and I think that is what's different than. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore movies. I love all forms of storytelling, but there's something so immersive about video games that if you have not experienced that, trying to explain that to someone on the outside, you know, they're not gonna get it.
Yeah, but let's be honest though, there is a massive difference between the movie industry and the games industry being active and passive, like forms of storytelling. So this is why obviously the video game movie adaptation thing will never really truly be dead, because you can't properly adapt an active medium into a passive medium. It's next to impossible.
Witcher.
I mean, I was going to say, I think.
Yeah, but Witcher side of the book.
I think video games are missing a trick by not doing TV instead. Honestly.
What do you mean?
Well, think about games. Like stories will go on for hours.
They do, yeah.
So try to condense a game story into like a 2-hour movie.
Right. That's a good point. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that the longer form content probably would help it, but you still have that problem of you're just watching it, you're feeling it, but you're not quite feeling the real experience, you know, by playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Last of Us TV show will be interesting to see if
I can't wait to see how that goes.
Yeah, 100%.
But then you won't have, like you just said, you won't have the involvement. Like, I know that some people don't like this, but there were moments in The Last of Us Part 2 where you were forced to do horrific things.
Right.
And it made you push a button to do those things.
I'm not a fan of that, but I do respect it, and I think a lot of people enjoy that.
No, and that's the thing about art as well, and what most people don't seem, I think, forget, is that art can...
It was very brave.
Art doesn't always have to be nice and fluffy and all of that. It can be deprecating, it can be close to the mark, and it can hit a nerve, you know?
Absolutely.
So, but I think a lot of people don't seem to maybe not understand that, who don't play games, is that, you know, they don't see the intricacies that go into a story. I mean, for example, like, over the years, like where I was staying with my mum, like she would look at games over the years and just go, oh wow, that's changed, hasn't it, from the last generation? And then it gets to the PS4 generation, she's like, this looks realistic. It's like, yeah, okay, but she doesn't understand the intricacies of stories because she's not playing them. But then I explain it to her, and she's like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
One game in particular, I think doesn't get enough credit for how clever it actually is, how deep it is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I mean, getting to the end is where it all kind of comes together. But like, you know, without spoiling anything, there's a really interesting discussion to be had that I keep thinking about.
I was about to say, I can't believe they haven't made movies of Assassin's Creed, and then I remembered
Well, they have. Yeah,
that was terrible.
They did. I will not talk about it.
They also did one of Hitman and Max Payne, which I thought were gonna make hilarious, great movies. No.
I mean, there's a Halo series still in development.
I know.
Yeah.
Neil Blomkamp's Halo has been like in production for many years.
Well, no, he scrapped it.
Yes, I know. That was a joke. Kieran.
But
oh
gosh, okay. But we do need to kind of
I was going to say.
wind this down.
I think to round up that little bit there, I am glad that you guys at Lock-On are really having this conversation and getting this discussion going. It is something that's really important. But I go with the kind of round up question because I've got. Unless you two have got one. To ask first.
I did quickly want to ask about the future stuff. you announced on your Kickstarter something very very interesting with your next
Yes.
volume, which is the collectible card game called Versus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
So, can you share a few more details about this, and also whose idea was this, and who do I have to pay to get this?
You can pay me directly here on my bank details. No, so myself and John are super into card games, like really like love card games. And as soon as we started working together, we're like, at some point we need to do a card game.
Aw.
And we're like, yeah, sure. So, and then as we went along, we were like, so we did art prints and stuff as bonuses for the first campaign, and we're doing some of those for the second too. But we kind of were thinking about it. It's like, you know, there's like, we could do something better. We could do something that would be like an actual game in itself. You know, we're making this thing talking about games. Why don't we make a game? We're like, okay. So we looked at stuff like Limited Run and Super Rare Games do collectible cards with their games. We're like, collectible cards would be cool, but it needs to be something that people can actually play. So we just came up with an idea that it was almost like a sort of triple triad meets Top Trumps meets tic-tac-toe, kind of just a very simple game with some deeper layers of strategy in it, which is Versus. And we were like, yeah, this is a great idea. And then we hit on the idea that we needed to get like studios in to have actual characters from games. So we're talking about these games and stuff, and we're like, okay, let's actually get video game characters in this thing. And we have. So that's
is
pretty
amazing.
awesome.
That's very amazing. Well done.
Yeah, really happy with that. We've not announced anything yet, but we're working with a bunch of different. It's mostly indie studios, of course, but
it doesn't matter.
We've got a couple of others.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
That's
I was going to ask you some of the characters. Let's leave that as a surprise. Shall we?
Can't have anything yet.
So now you said indie and stuff, and I am now firmly a Zagreus stan after playing Hades. I really do hope to see some characters from there, but I know that's probably a long shot. But you know what? I guess you can't divulge anything yet.
I can't divulge anything. You'd be surprised at some of the characters we've managed to get, honestly.
Okay, I'm looking forward to the surprise.
Wink. That's excellent. No, that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So
Ciaran, did you want to ask the last?
Yeah, I was going to get one last question just to round this up. So first of all, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Last question. Oh, no, go.
I was going to say this has been amazing. It's really insightful, really interesting. So thank you very much for taking the time to discuss this with us.
Yeah, and I suppose the last question I kind of have to kind of round up all of this is, where do you either personally or you as a team hope to see Lost in Cult and Lock On go in the next few years?
Ooh, as far as it can. I mean, me and John the other day were saying we want to be doing this when we're old. Like, we want to have Lock On be this thing that in 20 years' time is still around. I mean, Laurie Eggleston, who did the Metal Gear Solid one, at one point he calculated, because we had some people go, why is it 001 and 002? Why have you not just gone 1, 2, 3? Like, and we're like, because hopefully it'd be nice to. We don't want to like run out of numbers. And Laurie was like, you're not going to run out of numbers for a long time. You won't even hit 100 until I think it was something like 2050 something.
Yeah, especially if you're going on a quarterly basis.
Yeah. Ooh. So we're going to be a while. So so we'd really love to keep going as long as it's possible to do so. So as long as people still like what we're doing. I mean, we've already got plans for the next few volumes. We were speaking to Chris Scullion the other day from VGC, and he was like, he was like, I want to write a James Bond article for issue 007. And I was like,
oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Oh, if you don't do a spy games or something like that for 007, then you
Splinter Cell.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it has to be.
Splinter Cell, various James Bond games,
That's brilliant.
Even to a certain degree, Naked Snake could be included in that.
There you go. Yeah, but it has to, So we're hoping to continue on with that. We've got, we do our digital stuff through Steady, which is Lost in Cult. We call it the Members Club, and we're hoping to do more of that. So the kind of content that maybe you'd see more of online, the stuff that wouldn't be in the journal. So we've got recommendations from people. We've got some more up-to-date stuff, like so Jamie Sharp wrote an article about the abandoned stuff recently and what was going on with that. Hopefully he's going to do a follow-up now that all the other stuff's happened with that, or non-stuff, as it's so
Yes.
nothing's really happening.
And I'm just going to put this on record again. Kylie, I told you so.
No, I told you.
No, I told you
We
this
should
was
have
a
covered
non-story.
it.
No, I told you this was a non-story.
I've been trying to cover it for like months.
Yeah, and I said there's no conspiracy. This is a non-story. This will come to nothing.
The story is the non-story.
Who's been proven right on this one? I'm afraid.
It's so interesting,
It
even though nothing's
is.
happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I am now convinced that it's Silent Hill 2 because of that tiny little teaser. There's like the green jacket and the jeans, and I'm like, that is James Sunderland. Come on,
See,
Sunderland,
that's the
Sutherland.
thing. It's
Yeah.
Sunderland. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I'm now convinced that nothing's happening, and this isn't even a thing.
It's gonna be fun, whatever
Yeah.
turns
Yeah.
out from it. It's been a fun little AR experience.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's gonna do it. I don't want to cut you guys off. What do you think?
No, I think
No,
that's
that's
it.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Chat,
do you
if you want to ask anything.
Yeah,
and-
we'll leave this moment open for questions via chat. But whilst we wait for that to happen, Andrew, do you want to promote yourself,
Yes.
like social media, like
Sure.
anywhere people could contact you, or and of course the important Kickstarter.
Oh yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so for myself, if you want to come and say hi or see what I'm posting about, which is at the moment just purely lock on, so it's literally just lock on 24/7. I am at Oddment84. You can go and look at all the lock on stuff as well, just duplicated over on the official channel, which is at Lost in Cult. And you can also find us on Steady, which I've mentioned, so our digital platform, which is a subscription service, but we don't charge too much. And just to point out that the money that we make from Steady also goes to the writers, so we pay the writers for the articles that they write.
Excellent.
And we do podcasts there as well. So, and we've got some exclusive stuff that you can only get via Steady. So that is steadyhq.com/en/lost in cult.
Pop that in our chat, and I'll make sure to include it in the
Yeah.
description.
So it's a nice long one for you there. I'm trying to think what else I need. So the Kickstarter will be coming soon. So just keep an eye on lostincult.co.uk because we'll pop a link there as well as on the Twitter. And you can buy the first volume of Lock On. You got me confused about what my products are now. You can buy the first volume 001 on lostincult.co.uk/shop, digitally or physically. So yeah, have a look there. And I think that's it in terms of things to plug.
Well, when the Kickstarter goes live, you can expect that we as Rapid Reviews Radio will retweet it and ensure
Oh,
it
absolutely. Yeah.
gets a
Thank
lot
you.
of coverage
Mhm.
because the first issue has been a joy to read through
Yes.
the
Thank you.
various articles and see what you had put together for this one because, like I said, we're closely associated with Sean Hughes and we're always
Mhm.
interested about what that guy does. So
Yeah.
it was an absolute joy to not only to discuss that with him but also with yourself and get you on the podcast. So thanks once again for everything.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we've just had a fabulous little comment from
Yep.
chat. If one of y'all want to pick it up.
Chloe has put, just want to say good luck with Lock On, and it's been a super interesting listen.
Oh, thank you
With
very
an
much.
exclamation point.
Yes, our
One-
writers love an exclamation point.
One's fine. More than one is excessive.
Kieran, what were you going to say?
Oh, nah, I don't know. I was
Oh, I
going to say
thought
anything.
you were going to say something. Well, we're going to wrap it up, but that means that we have to give all of our socials. So, Pete, where can they find you?
You can find me on the socials, mostly on Twitter at PeteBeckett1. It's spelled BCKETT and the number 1. But I also man the Rapid Reviews Radio Twitter, which is RR Radio Pod. Don't know if that's in the outro, by the way. So just want to put that here.
Right. Kieran, what about you?
Yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me as always on Twitter at @TheMcGinn. On there, you can find links to Rapid Reviews UK, where I write many reviews. I should have one coming up soon, which I do discuss the kind of the deeper themes in that game as well, just to keep on theme here. And I also have my own personal blog, pauseplayreview.com, where I talk about movies, TV, games. I really need to write more on that. It's just that I'm so busy recently. But yeah, I mean, you might see something in there soon, either there or Rapid Reviews. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Kiley, what about you?
Yes, and you can find me on Twitter at the moment, which is at Kiley Tagreet, which is KLEYTHGREET. And I think that's going to do it for the podcast podcast portion of this episode. And we will talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Okay, now we're still live, but that's us off the podcast.
Yeah, so now we can just be chill. Which is why Kieran's having a little stretch out there.
Yes. I just stretched my knee out because I've got this bad knee, like, it was like stiffening up, and oh my god.
I'll tell you what, that stream going down actually was a godsend. I don't know if I could have done another hour. I needed to be.
So, Chloe, your comment way earlier, yes, that is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it, don't worry, just decided not to bring it
This is the world premiere.
No,
I love that.
It was the fact that she bashed her knee and she was trying to desperately
When they came back, I saw Kayla go.
Yeah, I saw that as well. Drawing attention.
Then I got the giggles because Chloe, and I was like, oh, I'm never going to stop.
Look, it would have made it worse if me or Kieran would have mentioned it.
Oh, yeah, I would have just been
No, Pete, I saw your face.
I was tempted. I had to stop myself, okay?
I'm doing the dumbest stuff on camera. It is so crazy. Right. Brent's having Cajun seasoned roasted chicken breast stuffed with shrimp and grits. Grits are wonderful.
Nice.
As well.
And I can't.
Be hungry.
I know. I love shrimp. I can't eat it because I'm allergic to it, but I love it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it sucks. Well, what sucks is growing up on the coast where you can, there's crabs and crawfish and shrimp, and you can't eat any of it, and it's just like, oh,
how annoying.
But okay, chat. If y'all want to throw a few things at us, we'll give you a couple more minutes, and then we'll wrap this up. At least the live bit.
Yeah, of course.
I have something I wanna ask Andrew off camera.
I'm concerned by this now.
Not as ominous. Not as ominous as you might think. This is for.
Okay. For this, I don't want to promote my own company. The other day, clearly wants to promote her own company now.
Not quite how that works, but yes. All right, Chad. I think we're gonna wrap up our live feed. Thank you guys for real. Thank you for joining in. We always love the conversation. Brent, you played Boyfriend Dungeon. So I don't know. See.
That's the dating sim / roguelike, right?
Here's the thing, and I
think it's something like that. Yeah, it's weird looking, but
it's real.
Apparently, it's getting good reviews. I think
it's on Switch and it's on Game Pass now, so you can.
This is actually.
Game Pass, there you go.
Oh my gosh! But see, this is kind of alluded to in Lock On, which is the current situation of re-looping in games. Why that's such a fad right now? I'm calling it a fad. Who knows? Maybe it'll be around forever. I don't know. But it's just weird how it's all kind of just converged and happened.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the Groundhog Day moment.
It does. Yeah, it's just constant, going back through. Even there's some indie games, even on Steam, that are all based on that re-looping.
Premise. Yeah.
It's not my favorite.
Well, just keep on bringing up articles. Well. I really enjoyed the nostalgia article. So I think I mentioned it, and I just think the nostalgia one was good. Just like how talking about, the games that couldn't live up to nostalgia, like remasters and stuff. That was a really good one. Just on the topic of looking back at things and stuff. There's some really good pieces in there. Honestly, you've done a good job.
No, it is. Yeah, that's.
I looked through the contents. The first thing I saw was Scott Pilgrim. I defaulted straight to that. It was like crack. I was like, Jesus.
Did you see the art for it? I mean, obviously you did, but.
Of course I did.
I know that was a dumb question.
It's very good art, but it's also a recreation of the art that's in the game as well, which I thought was really nice, actually.
Yeah. All right, I think we're gonna end the stream. Thank you. I might be getting tired. Thank you so much, chat. We will see you eventually. We'll let y'all know.
Well, it'll happen.
Bye. I'll have my people call you people. Anyway, bye, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. See you later.
See you later, guys.